Good morning, Arnold panel and guest. It's in our best interest and responsibility as a part of Indonesia's economic studies community to contribute in combating and rebounding from this COVID-19 pandemic economically. For this opportunity, we'll be presenting about which fiscal and monetary stimulus policies that the Indonesian government can apply to maximize post-pandemic rebound in the tourism industry, to hopefully provide meaningful ideas that can be used to help our nation, especially those involved in the tourism industry.
The tourism industry is important to Indonesia because of the industry itself has been consistently growing in the last few years with a constant increase of GDP of at least 1% per year. Tourism industry is also detrimental to business along the supply chain, with the industry employment capabilities reaching roughly 13 million people as a whole. Studies also reveal that there is a significant contribution to foreign currency exchange, which shows a consistent upward movement for the last few years. The tourism business is really important for the industry's income, employment rate, and other businesses as a whole. At the year 2015, tourism industry held at least 10% of all employments across Indonesia workforce, while producing roughly 4% of the GDP at the time, with a constant growth rate. The industry also have a huge impact on other businesses such as retail stores, restaurants, tourism attraction, and many small businesses surrounding the industry itself. The tourism industry also have a large contribution for the economy as a whole, with the industry producing at least 15% of the GDP that includes indirect and contribution. The tourism industry have been growing thanks to the support from the government in hopes of fulfilling the long-term objective to further the infrastructure in the country, lowering the wealth disparity in Indonesia, and as well as decreasing the level of unemployment across Indonesia.
So here are the monetary policies by the government. So first is the lowering reserve requirements for banks. Here, Bank Indonesia reduced the policy rate by 50 BPS earlier this year to 4.25%. Second is increasing the maximum duration for repo and reverse repo up to 12 months. And third is increasing the frequency of foreign exchange swap auctions. So next is the fiscal policies by the government. So the government has a total of three stimuli packages of a total of 1 quadrillion, amounted of almost 7.7% of the total GDP in Indonesia. First is to support the health sector to boost testing and treatment for the COVID-19. Second is to increase benefits and broader coverage of existing social assistance schemes to low-income households by giving food aid, conditional cash transfers, and electricity subsidy. Third is the expanded unemployment benefits. Fourth is the tax reliefs, including tourism sectors and individuals with an income ceiling. And the fifth is the permanent reductions of the corporate income tax from a rate of 25% to 22% in 2020 until 2021, and the 20% starting in 2022.
So above is this radar chart released by the World Economic Forum in Travel and Tourism in 2017, which shows Indonesia's competitiveness within the tourism industry against close Southeast Asian rivals, such as Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia, at 15 distinct aspects. As it can be observed from the graph, that Indonesia is well within the threshold in most, but does not excel in any of the aspects, and is drastically lacking in health and hygiene, which has become increasingly important in this COVID-19 pandemic. But on a positive note, there is a factor that is nearing the exiting the threshold towards excelling above the competition, which is price competitiveness. The government can look to further emphasize this selling point during this time through providing rules-based fiscal stimuli to tourism-related businesses such as transport and accommodation to incentivize tourism to Indonesia. This can be especially effective knowing that people may be on a lower budget as there are costs of wage cuts during the pandemic. So this is what we have going for us in Indonesia. So as previously mentioned, we have a superior CPI compared to Singapore and Thailand. So it'll be more enticing to come to Indonesia. Aside from that, Indonesia also has a vast landmass, which gives us an advantage, as it means that we have more coastlines and more mountain ranges, which usually are topics of tourism. And our coastline would be second to the most in the world, with 54,000 kilometers of coastline.
And these are the factors that influence tourists to go to a particular country. We focus on four of them. In this case, for Indonesia as well. So, firstly, it's a language barrier. Based on OECD data, um, Singaporeans prefer to visit Malaysia because of language barrier. As we all know, in Indonesia, most of the population lack the adequate skill to speak English. So that's why many tourists prefer to visit other countries that have higher proficiency in English. Secondly, is the relative price. Fortunately, Indonesia excel uh, in these factors because Indonesia has a high CPI, and yeah, the prices in Indonesia for products and accommodation is relatively cheaper compared to other countries in Asia, such as Singapore. And there's the lack of infrastructure. This affects greatly to tourism because there's lots of tourism spots, beautiful tourism spots in East Indonesia, such as in Papua. But due to the lack of infrastructure, such as roads, airports, many tourists can't go there. And as a result, most of which the tourism site, the spots there is fairly expensive. And because of the lack of infrastructure, there's less publicity or campaign regarding the tourism sites. Lastly, safety and security. Sadly, Indonesia does not excel in this key area. Their competitors, Singapore and Malaysia, is far safer and have a tighter security. And this can be shown like in the last 5 years, Indonesia has experienced few bombings in major cities such as Jakarta and Surabaya. So yeah, these are the factors that might deter tourists to go to Indonesia because of the safety and security concerns.
So, in relation, knowing the factors and determinants that determine tourism towards Indonesia, here are some possible solutions that are available. So, there's fiscal stimuli during this time where you can provide stimulus packages to tourism-related businesses, so they can improve their services and also rebound from the parts that they're losing out right now in their incomes, as well as improving health and safety infrastructure. Meanwhile, on the monetary policy side, we could lower interest rates to incentivize more consumption and investment in the country, which would help reboost the economy as a whole, which would translate also towards the tourism industry. Meanwhile, another fiscal policy that can be used is improving our soft and hard infrastructure. As previously mentioned, there's a language barrier that a lot deters people from coming to Indonesia. So training would help us in speaking language, as well as the new normal norms that increased hygiene calls for. So training would be also useful, as well as digitalization, which improves communication between parties. So our recommendation is fiscal policies, including fiscal stimuli. So the reason we recommend this is because it's more direct and requires a shorter time period, considering the fiscal space available and the disparity of the economy. So here we've devised a timeline-like strategy through which we can use our fiscal stimuli and improving our infrastructure in reviving the tourism industry. So firstly, we need to put a strong foundation on top of the building we're about to build, which would come through improving our health and safety infrastructure, which would then help build trust from the tourists to start coming to these tourist locations. Then we can start into moving to reviving the travel-related businesses by helping through stimulus packages to hotels, restaurants, and attractions to help them to cover the cost that they may have incurred, and also build on top of the momentum by improving their resources and improving their services.
After reviving the travel-related businesses, automatically unemployment will be reduced. Based on ILO's data in Indonesia's tourism, an additional job in the tourism core industry, one additional job, will affect to an additional 1.5 times an increase of jobs in related industry. After that, with the unemployment reduction, monetary policy can come into play to provide incentives to travel and tourism, and also fiscal stimuli to support the businesses and tourism itself to promote themselves and also to publicize themselves.
So that concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we provided some insight into the situation.